Roll out your playing mats, crack open that brand new pack of sleeves, and open those binders because today we're taking a look at my Arna Kennerud Sky Captain deck. This Esper token list has plenty of ways to make said tokens, along with plenty of ways to put 1/1 counters on those tokens and start doubling them very quickly with Arna. Throw in some individual haymakers that could become problems on their own, and this deck is a go wide and go tall absolute unit. If that sounds interesting to you, we're going to go over the full thing. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, become a channel or Patreon member for as low as $1. It really does help out the channel a ton. And with that, let's jump into it. Arna Kennerud Sky Captain is 2, a white, a blue, and a black for a 4/4 flying lifelink with ward, discard a card. Whenever a modified creature you control attacks, double the number of each kind of counter on it. Then for each non-token permanent attached to it, create a token that's a copy of that permanent attached to that creature. Meaning that any kind of 1/1 counters on a creature will quickly become 2 1/1 counters, then 4, then 8, then 16. The name of the game here is exponential growth on these counters on our creatures. Now, this focus on counters doesn't mean we forgot about the whole anything attached to it gets doubled as well. There's a few cards in here that utilize that as well to get some super good effects. So I think a good place to start with this deck is the deck's token producers. Starting things off, we've got Wizened Mentor, who's 1 and a white for a 2/2 zombie cleric. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of a permanent that isn't a mana ability, you create a 1/1 white zombie. This ability triggers only once each turn. The amount of rotations that I make 3 zombies with this thing is insane. Definitely one of my favorites in this deck. Plus, look at these zombie tokens. They're fucking sick, so that's a plus. We've also got Monastery Mentor, who is 2 and a white for a 2/2 human monk with prowess. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a 1/1 white monk creature token with prowess into the battlefield. And with the deck running close to 30 non-creature spells, that can also produce a ton of tokens for us. Bitter Blossom, my personal favorite token engine in this deck, is 1 and a black for a tribal enchantment fairy. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may lose 1 life and create a 1/1 black fairy rogue with flying. Thales Revenant Medium is 3 a white and a black for a 3/4 human cleric. At the beginning of each end step, create X 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying, where X is the number of tokens you created. That could get really out of control, especially when paired with stuff like Notorious Throng, which is 3 and a blue for a tribal sorcery rogue with Prowl for 5 and a blue. You may cast this card for its Prowl cost if you dealt damage to a player with a rogue this turn. Create X 1/1 black fairy rogue creature tokens with flying, where X is the damage dealt to your opponents this turn. If the Prowl cost was paid, take an extra turn after this one. And we'll talk about that later because there is one cheeky way to trigger this Prowl cost, and I love it. Elspeth Sun's Champion is a great one, being 4 and 2 white for a 4 loyalty planeswalker. That's +1 can create 3 1/1 white soldiers, whose -3 can destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater, and whose -7 can give all of our creatures +2/+2 in flying permanently with an emblem, which in a token deck, that's putting in overtime. Dalkovan Encampment is a new land that I'm absolutely loving. It taps for a white and it enters untapped as long as we control a mountain or a swamp. So in this deck, a swamp, taps for a plains, and you can pay 2 and a white, tap it. Whenever you attack this turn, create 2 1/1 red warrior creature tokens that are tapped and attacking, sacrifice them at the beginning of the next end step. Next, we've got Skrelv's Hive, and this one's for you, that guy who keeps commenting that none of the cards I'm talking about are Skrelv's Hive. Here you go, okay? There you go. We're talking about Skrelv's Hive. Your dream has come true, my guy. For 1 and a white, we get an enchantment. At the beginning of our upkeep, we lose 1 life. We create a 1/1 colorless Phyrexian Might artifact creature token with Toxic 1, and this creature can't block. It also has Corrupted. As long as the opponent has 3 or more poison counters, creatures you control with Toxic have lifelink. They're just more 1/1s we can smack face with at the end of the day. Moving on to Jacked Rabbit, who is one of the best token creators in this deck, being X 1 and a white for a 1/2 with Ravenous. When it enters with X 1/1 counters, and if X is 5 or more, we draw a card. And when Jacked Rabbit attacks, create a number of 1/1 white rabbit creature tokens equal to its power. So in Arna, if we play this thing for 4 mana, it's a 3/4, and when we attack, it'll become a 5/6, and we'll get 5 1/1 rabbits that we can then start throwing more counters on. Next turn, Jack Rabbit will become a 9/10. Pretty gross. Absolutely gross. Almost every card in this deck just becomes a win con with Arna. And even if she's not in play, the absolute buffage and production of tokens has been able to handle things so far. Felisa Fang of Silverquill is an absolute back you into a corner unit, being 2 a white and a black for a 3/2 flying mentor. Also, I want to bring up this thing doesn't really scream flying to me. Whenever a non-token creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, create X tapped 2/1 Inklings with flying, where X is the number of counters it had on it. Wait a second, token production for the amount of counters that were on something? Yeah, that's kind of cool with me. Let's move on to the ways that we've got to put 1/1 counters on our whole board that we can start doubling with Arna. Up first, we've got Collective Effort for 1 and 2 white at sorcery speed. We can escalate, meaning we can choose additional modes as long as we tap an untapped creature to do so. We can either destroy target creature with power 4 or greater, destroy target enchantment, or put a 1/1 counter on each creature target player controls. So you could use it politically. It's also removal, a way to put 1/1s on all of our tokens. Fantastic card. On a similar note, Requisition Raid is fantastic, being 1 white for a sorcery. It has Spree, so you can pay 1 colorless for each mode you want past the first mode you choose. So you can pay 1 for each mode you want. You can pay an additional 1 to destroy target artifact, or destroy target enchantment, or put a 1/1 counter on each creature target player controls. In this deck, these cards can easily feel like 2 mana overruns. It's extremely powerful. Lae'zel, while not necessarily putting counters on stuff, definitely deserves to be put in this category. For 2 and a white, we have a 3/3. If you would put 1 or more counters on a creature or planeswalker you control, or on yourself, put that many plus 1 of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. A counter on something, we put 2. If we put 4 counters on something, we put 5. Very useful in here. As is Mikaeus the Lunarch. This thing's gross in here. Being X and a white for a 0/0 that enters with X 1/1 counters on it. You can tap it to put a 1/1 counter on it. You can also tap it to remove a 1/1 counter from it and put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. And with Arna, Mikaeus himself or all your tokens can just get out of hand very quickly. Ajani Steadfast is another great choice in this deck, for 3 and a white, being a 4 loyalty planeswalker, whose +1 will give a creature 1/1, first strike, vigilance, and lifelink until end of turn, and whose -2 will give a 1/1 counter and a loyalty counter to all creatures and planeswalkers we control. It's also got a -7 that won't let us take more than 1 damage, but that -2 is what we're here for. Drana, Liberator of Malakir, is one of the best 1/1 counter producers in the deck, being 1 and 2 black for a 2/3 flying first strike. When it deals combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on each attacking creature you control. This thing comes out early, starts buffing out our board extremely quickly. Being 3 and a white for an enchantment, on landfall, we either get a 2/2 beast or a 1/1 counter on all of our creatures and vigilance. Yep, I'm gonna probably take that second one a lot of the time. Duty Beyond Death is one my cousin showed to me, and it's incredible. Being 1 and a white for an instant, as an additional cost, sack a creature. In a token deck, no big deal. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Yeah, for 2 mana, yes sir. And of course, that card probably made you think of the next card, Unbreakable Formation. Being 2 and a white for an instant, creatures you control gain indestructible. If you cast this spell during your main phase, put a 1/1 counter on each of those creatures, and they gain vigilance until end of turn. And since we're talking about Duty Beyond Death and Unbreakable Formation, this feels like as good a place as any to put Guardian of Faith. 1 and 2 white, 3/2, flash, vigilance. When it enters, any number of creatures you control phase out. In a token deck, this is an absolute unit. We can board wipe, keep all of our tokens. If someone else board wipes, we keep all of our tokens. We can use it to protect Arna. It itself can just come out if we need a little bit more damage at the end of someone's turn and then swing during ours. One of my favorite cards to play. So let's move on to a smaller 6-card package we have of individual creatures that can come out early and become threats on their own very quickly. We'll call these mini bombs for the sake of the video. The first mini bomb we have is Sinkhole Surveyor, being 1 and a black for a 1/3 flying. When this creature attacks, you lose 1 life, and this creature endures 1. So you can either give a 1/1 counter to it, or create a 1/1 white spirit. So when we need tokens, this thing can just start pumping out tokens. But if we've already got the token engines covered, this thing can quickly start giving itself counters very early. We drop Arna, it's at probably 5-6 counters by the time we drop her. Now it's a 13. Now it's got 12 counters on it. Becomes a threat extraordinarily quick. And like I said, makes tokens too. Nesting Dovehawk is the absolute best card in this deck. I don't care what you say. Being 3 and a white for a 2/2 flying. At the beginning of combat on your turn, populate. Whenever a creature token enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Nesting Dovehawk. I was playing against my buddy and I had Nesting Dovehawk in play. I literally populated a creature token into play, made it a 3/3, swung, Arna was in play, which gave it another counter, which made it a 4/4, smacked face, played Notorious Throng, and produced 4 1/1 fairies with flying, which gave Nesting Dovehawk 4 more 1/1 counters, making it an 8/8 with potential of being a 14/14 on my next turn, all the while just spitting out more tokens on my combat. Fantastic card. And while we're on that note talking about Notorious Throng, let's talk about the cheeky way that I have to trigger it through Invisible Stalker. Invisible Stalker is incredible. If we can have this in play when we get one of those board-wide 1/1 counter cards off, I think we all understand how quickly a 1/1 hexproof unblockable can become a player killer paired with Arna and any amount of counters on it. And like I said, triggers Notorious Throng because Invisible Stalker, look at that, is a rogue and it's unblockable. So you're going to get that trigger with Notorious Throng. Take an extra turn. Yeah, actually so gross in this deck, dude. Moving on to Dreadhorde Invasion. Dreadhorde Invasion is 1 and a black for an enchantment. At the beginning of your upkeep, you lose 1 life and amass zombies 1, which means you put a 0/0 black army into play and then put a 1/1 counter on it. If you've already got one of these armies, you put another counter on that army. Whenever a zombie token you control with power 6 or greater attacks, it gains lifelink until end of turn. It's just a token that will slowly get bigger and bigger and bigger with 1/1 counters and then upgrade itself with lifelink once it hits 6, and then paired with Arna, the fact that all of its power is coming from counters. Yeah, the exponential growth that can come out of that army counter is insane. The one thing I do not like about this card is the misleading artwork. The artwork looks like it'll make multiple. You only make 1. Maybe change that. Moving on to Reluctant Role Model. For 1 and a white, we get a 2/2. At the beginning of our second main phase, if Reluctant Role Model is tapped, put a flying, lifelink, or 1/1 counter on it. When Reluctant Role Model dies or another creature you control dies, if it had counters on it, put those counters on up to 1 target creature. Just by itself, you swing with it. It's a bear, you get a 1/1 counter, and then with Arna, you start exponentially growing those 1/1 counters, and then it also can get a flying, a lifelink counter on it. Those we don't care about so much, but we can just exponentially grow those 1/1s, and if anybody wants to deal with Reluctant Role Model, all those counters are going to switch over to something else, probably Arna, so we can get a big lifelink swing, and that doesn't only apply to Reluctant Role Model, as we can see on the card, it applies to all creatures we control, so while this is in play, it's doing double damage. And finally for this section, my second favorite card in the deck, Silent Hall Creeper, who's 1 in a blue for a 1/1 that can't be blocked. Whenever Silent Hall Creeper deals combat damage to a player, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Put 2 1/1 counters on it, draw a card, or have it become a copy of another target creature you control. Keep in mind when it becomes that copy, it will no longer have these abilities, so you're probably going to want to do it in the order that's on the card, and that's fine for Arna because we can play it, swing with it, it's a 3/3 with 2 counters, and if Arna's in play the next turn, it's going to be a 5/5 with 4 counters, we draw a card, and then the last time we swing with it, it'll become a 9/9 with 8 counters, and then become a copy of our best thing in play with 8 counters on it. Such a good card in this deck. Honestly, it's fighting with Bitter Blossom for my favorite card, that's for sure. Of course, the deck runs Swiftfoot Boots and Lightning Greaves because, 1, Arna's incredibly important to keep in play, and with her ability, we can start making token copies of them and throwing the copies on other important stuff we have in play. Extra good in this list, for sure. We also run a Corpse Knight. I didn't really know where to put this, so here it is. We ping opponents when we have creatures enter. It's a token deck. It's in here. And outside of the board wipes, removal, mana ramp, card draw that I'll show you in a bit, I want to talk about 2 of the coolest cards in this list. The first of which is Twisted Embrace. For 2 and 2 black, it's an enchantment aura. You can enchant a creature or artifact. The enchant permanent gets +1/+1. And when Twisted Embrace enters, you destroy target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. Straight up creature and planeswalker removal stapled onto an aura that can be enchanted to our creatures. So with Arna, we can start making token copies of Twisted Embrace and just start killing the biggest threats in play. Incredibly good. Also, Twisted Embrace provides a +1/+1, so it'll also be buffing whoever this is on. And to follow it up, we've got Flight of Fancy for 3 and a blue, enchantment aura. When it enters, you draw 2 cards, and enchant creature gets flying. So we really don't care about double, triple, quadra flying, obviously, but the fact that we're going to be drawing 2 cards whenever enchant creature attacks with Arna in play is actually some super good card draw. Here's a look at my mana ramp, the deck's card draw, and the deck's removal, along with the deck's board interaction, and of course, the deck's land base. Here's a look at the mana curve, the mana color divvy up, and a look at a couple starter hands on screen, as well as all the cards I am considering putting in thanks to the live stream that we had for this deck. If you'd like to suggest some cards for future decks, make sure you check out my live streams. If you want to make sure you catch my live streams, make sure you hit that bell icon. So you might see some of these cards in the 2.0 version of this list. Be sure to join our Discord. It's free. We're pushing 300 people on there talking Magic, always suggesting underplayed cards, tips for decks, Super good group of people. And if you guys want to show additional support and help me and the channel personally, you can become a channel member or a Patreon member. Starts as low as $1, where you can have a direct hand in recommending some of the weekly underplayed cards that we do on the channel, as well as an end of channel shout out. Or you could just become a free member over on the Patreon and just see what I'm posting and see if you're all about it. Huge shout out to all of our patrons that you can see on screen that seriously support the channel. Every week I get reminded that, hey, there's actually people that like the stuff I make. So that's super nice. So if you guys like the deck, have any card suggestions, anything like that, make sure to drop a comment, make sure to subscribe, like, and I'll see you guys next time.